it's Jeff with J-Dub Designs. Thanks for stopping in and checking out the channel. Today's project is all about showing you how to create cornhole boards. This was a project Nellie and I did together for Christmas gifts for our family. This project began with a trip to a couple stores in our area. Builder's Mart had the plywood on hand, and Wabash Hardware and Rental had the hardware, stain, polyurethane, and assorted items. My first task was to cut the 4x8 sheets down to the 2x4 tops. It's always a challenge to do this. Recently, I acquired an adjustable stand with rollers which really helped to support the plywood as I cut it. In the future, my plan is to purchase a Festool track saw to make this an easier task. Here are the dimensions for the frame of the cornhole board. This makes it much easier to remember what dimensions I need to cut. Then it's to the table saw to rip the frame widths. Even though I had already checked my measurements, it's important to make sure everything is right. So, measure twice, cut once. Or is that measure 3 times? And cut once. An important lesson when it comes to making things is to batch. Nellie and I knew we were making several sets of cornhole boards. It was very helpful to make everything at once to save time. Now it's time to drill the pocket holes to assemble the frames and tops together. With the Craig Foreman, it's crucial to make sure it's set up correctly. Along the way, I like to confirm the setup several times as I'm drilling the holes just to ensure nothing moves. If you've had your shop any time at all, you are probably finding the same thing I'm finding. Dust collection and cleanup is vital. The Milwaukee Backpack Vacuum helps with this task. Now it's on to cutting everything to length. With the frame cut to width, I'll bring the pieces over to the miter saw station so I can get all the pieces dialed into their final dimensions. When I built the miter saw station, I built it with the Craig sliding rule system so I can do repeatable cuts very easily. It's time to finish drilling all these pocket holes. I don't know how many there were, but it was a bunch. With all the pocket holes done, it's time for assembly. This is where the assembly table and several clamps come in real handy. Recently I was able to pick up a few of the Jorgensen one-hand clamps. They were super handy on this build. All the tools I mentioned in the video will be linked below. Today's Bad Dad joke is sponsored by JW Designs. Once I was abducted by mimes. They did unspeakable things to me. I'm showing you a couple different ways to cut out the hole for the cornhole boards. The first way you see me using here is a template, a drill, and a jigsaw to cut the hole. The second way uses a template as well, but I made that template with a 6-inch hole saw, which gives you a really nice circle, a drill, a jigsaw, and a router with a flush trim bit. So, with the second method, I use that jigsaw to get as close to the line as I'm comfortable with. Then I leave the template in place and follow it with a router to finish the cut. The result of the second method is much better than the first because it's very difficult to keep a steady hand while trying to freehand a circle with a jigsaw. Now that the holes are all cut, it's time to move on to the design on the board tops. We chose to go with a fairly standard approach. I used my square to find the middle of the circle, then taped off the corners to the middle and painted the area inside the tape. After the paint, it was on to stain and polyurethane. Be sure you give the stain plenty of time to dry, generally allow 24 hours. After that, we use a 50-50 mix of polyurethane with mineral spirits to give us a nice wipe-on poly that can be reapplied after an hour. Then, we give it a day and come back with sanding or quadruple-aught steel wool. After the smoothing, we moved on to polish with paste wax and a buffer. I did compare sanding with an orbital sander and 220 grit sandpaper to quadruple-aught steel wool. The orbital sander did a much better job providing a nice smooth finish. As you can probably guess, the cornhole boards do need to have a smooth finish, so anyone throwing the cornhole bags has a nice slide to ease those bags right into the hole. The legs, I have a couple templates I use to locate the holes on the cornhole board and the 2x4 leg to get the right angle and shape. Regulation for the back of the cornhole board off of the ground is 12 inches, so this template ensures this measurement is right. The hardware I use for the boards is a 5/16 by 3-inch galvanized carriage bolt with a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut. I tighten them snugly so everything works as it should. I would recommend the nut is checked and tightened as needed. The boards turned out beautifully. I'm confident the kids and the grandkids will enjoy them for many years to come. It's a joy to be able to make things like this for the ones we love. Hopefully this project has helped you understand what Janelle and I learned along the way, and that is a couple things. Number one, it is the joy of creating. While the structure of the cornhole board stays pretty much the same, it was fun to work together and figure out color scheme and all those things. And number two, the joy of giving. Our kids are going to enjoy these gifts for years to come. Till next time, keep making sawdust.